Hi. So I'm not the artist. I'm the daughter of the artist. My father passed away in 2012. Hearing about your work and how it's connected to a protest movement, I could just kind of segue from that. My family was exiled from communist Poland in the mid-70s, just aged myself, you'll see soon. And my father's kind of problems, political problems, started in 1968, which was a hot year all over the world in many places. And in Poland, there was a particular angle to it. The year before, Israel had won the 1967 war, and the Soviet Union basically looked at it as a threat and started an anti-Zionist campaign, which of course became, really it was an anti-Semitic campaign. And the Polish government was basically a by proxy government that had been installed, kind of like what Mr. Putin was planning to do, decapitate Ukraine and, put in new leadership. And they went along, they were probably told, like, now you need to do the anti-Zionist campaign. And one of the first things, professors were thrown out of their jobs. People in military positions were thrown out of their jobs for being Jewish. And 2 students got expelled in Warsaw. One of them, you probably know, if you know any Polish history, Adam Michnik was one of them. And students all over Poland started protesting, okay? And my father was in the leadership in his city, where he was studying, which is called Wrocław. And actually, the students in the architecture department at the Polytechnic, which is where he was studying, did more than a sit-in. They basically occupied the buildings on their campus. And my dad was doing a joint program with the Fine Arts Academy. He was an artist also. So he was the guy who got the job of making banners with protest slogans that they hung out of the windows of the building. So I'm telling you this story because there are banner paintings of my father's here that tap into actually kind of a history of this type of art that all started with actual protest banners. In 1968, that's also when my father got on the radar of the regime. And what I would just say is that like the next 10 years was kind of a struggle to exist for him and to express himself that ended in exile. So he continued the theme of banners in his art because he'd also grown up in a system where there were propaganda banners hanging all around it. Hey, you can see examples of this type of stuff right here at the Wende and in this show. He made a variety of them. Some of them showed basically, he would take the form of the banner and show a dead human being and a pool of blood on it. He would appropriate this form and show the actual violence of the system, on an artwork that he would make. So around the time of the 1989 revolutions, which the name Wende, by the way, references, my father really got into this form. It was actually a really exciting moment in his life that he was seeing the system finally crumble. And it crumbled, as we all know. And we were actually, as a family, able to go back to Poland for the first time. And one of the things that happened is there had been a policy of erasure of artists like my father from design and art history. And when my father was exiled, he was specifically told, take all your art with you. Don't leave anything here. Take it and leave. We'll destroy whatever stays here. And the first minister of culture of a free Poland wanted to bring back not only my father, but other artists, writers, all kinds of creative people. And Poland, like all the countries behind the Iron Curtain, was broke at the time. And Poland had its first opportunity to represent itself as a free country and as a country with self-determination at a World Expo in 1992, which took place in Seville. And the Minister of Culture asked my father to make a statement about the recent history, which my dad took really seriously. You know, it was like, wow, I'm being asked by the first Minister of Culture. This Minister of Culture was an art historian who was also in a network of people who saved Polish monuments, paintings, art. I mean, for example, the Leonardo da Vinci's Lady with Ermine is in Krakow, in the museum in Krakow. They sneakily had to make like copies of it because there were attempts by high up, you know, communist leaders to take it, you know. So he was from a network of people who fought to preserve culture. So it meant a lot to my father. And he came up with a vision for a big installation of artworks called My Europe, which would comment on the recent history, the trauma, you know, everything the country went through. Poland was attacked both by Nazi Germany and by the Soviet Union, and Poland sustained the most biological, and that means humans being killed, and material losses of World War II. So, you know, it was some pretty heavy history to address. And there was one little problem. There was no money. Poland, like all the other countries, was bankrupt because communism wasn't about an ideal. This was basically Russia exploiting everybody around them, taking their resources, okay? So my father, as communism was crumbling, he worked with a band called the Grateful Dead, a California band, everybody. And he created an art installation for their 25th anniversary tour, and had a connection with the band members and also with their lawyer, a man named Hal Sanford Kent, who's also an amazing art collector. So my dad reached out to them and asked, hey, could you help? And yes, they stepped in and sponsored the transport of this artwork out to Seville and back. And I want to give a little shout out today. We have amongst our guests, Hal Sanford Kent and my dad are both somewhere. I'm not going to assign anything, but his son Jonas is here with us today. Thanks for coming. So what you see here are artworks from My Europe. There's a banner that shows a Soviet flag that dominates the sky and drips down over a happy, pristine, peaceful landscape. It's called The Invasion. Alternate title is The Soviet Flag. You know, it's a Soviet flag, but you could mentally replace it with the flag of the Russian Federation right now. There's another work called The Polish Flag, and it shows an absolutely war-torn landscape, you know, representing World War II and the devastation, but please absolutely see it in the context of what's happening now as well. It's the same imperialism and aggression and cruelty. And there's a work that represents hopefulness on the other side of that work called Awakenings, and it shows a sky rising up out of the darkness. And I'm really, really delighted, you know, that these works are here, and I never would have expected that they would be, you know, relevant as they are right now.
Thank you very much, Hanna. I want to continue.